You can use this.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of teenagers on the computer. Got the one.
And we're on. And good evening, and welcome to the September 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Here with me in person, we have Ellen Sturgis, Megan Birch-McMichael, Courtney Fresha, Jim Salvi, and myself, Tom Ryan, and we also have Denise Demboski, our town administrator, and Maureen McKeon, our administrative assistant. So welcome. I will start off with public input. Oh, I may be muted. I'll start off with public input. If there is any, please raise your electronic hand or wave at me. That being said, I will move on. Chairman's comments. First thing is on October, Stowe TV, I think you're unmuted.
Is it Stowe TV or is it?
And Len, you may be unmuted at the moment also.
Whoever's the host can mute. Yes. Are you?
Oh, come on. What the hell is this shit?
I don't even know who.
I would click the mute all button again at the
mute
bottom
all.
and shut everybody off.
Mute all, yes. Okay.
That was the same voice.
It was the same voice.
All right. My apologies for that. I have no control over it. On October 3rd, the Stowe Board of Health will be holding their annual Fluke Clinic in conjunction with the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. They'll be having a drive-through clinic held at Hale Middle School on Hartnagel Road. For 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. will be seniors only, and 12 to 2 p.m. for 9 years and older. You can print out a copy of your, you need to print out a copy of your flu insurance information and fill out a form prior to going. You can pick up, you should be able to get the form at the town website and or the town building. If you have any questions, contact the Board of Health through the through email at health@stowe-ma.gov. On a little sadder note, last Friday, September 18th, 2020, Justice of the Supreme Court, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, passed away at the age of 87 after serving 27 years on the Supreme Court. Chief Justice John Roberts commented on Ginsburg's passing. Our nation has lost a jurist of historic nature. We at the Supreme Court have lost a cherished colleague. Today we mourn, but with confidence that future generations will remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg as we knew her, a tireless and resolute champion of justice. In reading other comments by her other colleagues on the Supreme Court, I was heartened by the respect they all had for Justice Ginsburg, even though they at times had vastly differing opinions. An admirable example in these difficult times. A truly great woman and a loss to our country. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence in remembrance of Justice Ginsburg. Thank you. And thank you, Justice Ginsburg. Next, meeting minutes. We have the minutes of the September 8th, 2020 meeting. And if there are any comments on those, I will entertain them.
I had one. I sent it to Maureen already, but it's just where she had put habitat. I was actually referring to Habitek, which is a very different organization than Habitat. So we'll just get that changed.
Any other comments?
I also had a comment under the intermunicipal agreement for regional housing. I had made a comment, and I would just like to change how it was stated. So I have given Maureen this via email. My proposed rewording would be Ms. Fritcha commented that an inquiry had been made as to whether the cost of the service could be reduced due to the larger number of member towns. Apparently, it is unlikely that our cost will go down. That's it for me.
Any other comments? Do we have a motion by any chance?
I move to accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Correspondence. Or anything anybody wanted to bring up in the correspondence? All right, we will move on. Wait, I think we have to wait 3 minutes. All right, well, we will go into a holding pattern for a couple of minutes. It's 4 minutes according to the
You
computer.
could do the,
I'd be happy to do my time if you
All right,
want to.
that sounds good.
So you already spoke about the Fluke Clinic. For this meeting, I was tasked with reporting back about changing the name of the board from the Board of Selectmen to the Select Board. I'm still working on gathering some data. It does require a town meeting vote as it impacts the town bylaws and charter. I'm just waiting for some information on other towns that have recently gone through it to see if there are any cost implications that I'm not aware of. I don't think there are, but I just want to be sure before we formally move forward. But it's fairly straightforward, the towns that have done it. It's a usually quick and easy town meeting vote. Special town meeting plans. So at this point, it does not appear we need a fall special town meeting. I spoke with Superintendent Clenchey. I spoke with State Rep Kate Hogan regarding the state budget. They are nowhere near ready to release a final budget. The superintendent plans to do everything possible without having to come back to the town for additional funds. I did speak with Kathy regarding the Halleck's Point vote. They are still working on their funding, so she feels that it's fine to wait. Right now, everyone seems that if we needed a special town meeting, January or February would be more likely. Given the status of the state, they're waiting until after the November election to figure out if the federal government plans to release any funding to help the states deal with COVID. If that happens and they have a better outlook on their revenue, they can proceed, but right now there's nothing on the horizon. I would say, Maureen had put out to the departments to see if anyone had any articles. There are a handful. There's nothing, I spoke at the department head meeting this morning, there's nothing pressing, there's nothing that's a priority that needs to happen. So I think at this point, we are just in a holding pattern, waiting to see what happens. We did have a special town meeting organization meeting last week to see if we were gonna have it, how we were going to proceed. So there are already ideas, if another town meeting has to happen during COVID, which it's likely it will. So that's already in motion, so if we need to move forward, we have a game plan. Any questions on special town meeting?
Just a comment, Denise and I had talked about it. Part of it is that in order to hit the end of November meeting that we were talking about, we would have had to open the warrant today. For the December, it would have been the next meeting. So it just seemed like, you know, with the information she had pulled forward, you know, until we get more information, it doesn't look like a viable solution. One thing we did talk about also is I believe that there's consensus on the board, but I wanted to bring it up that if if we don't have to have a town meeting to move money, we probably, my opinion at least, is we probably wouldn't want to have one just for Halleck's Point or a couple of minor articles. So, but I wanted to bring it up with everybody else to make sure everybody was of that thought process. It just didn't seem, to try to pull off a $10,000 town meeting for one article. Jim?
I agree. We should just keep in mind the possibility of a town meeting forced by a petition. And I haven't checked the charter on this. It might be 100 or 200 signatures, but I know it's more than for annual town meeting, but it's a number that I think is at least theoretically doable.
My recollection is it's 200 for a special town meeting.
Okay, so
But
that's a high bar, but possible. May I ask one question?
sure.
If you were, all good news as far as I'm concerned. I wonder if though, rather than just stopping the discussions about the mechanics of a special town meeting in the cold, whether you and the other staff should keep that going to perhaps get 2 or 3 options in mind. I would say don't share it with us until you have to, but at least when we get to a point where we think we need a January or February special town meeting, at least we're ready to go on the mechanics of it, or at least to see options.
So I do think we are at that point.
Oh, okay.
The options are so limited, to be honest with you, especially having a town meeting in the winter during COVID. To have something fully outdoors in a parking lot, if you will, the fire chief has spoken out against that due to exhaust and cars running. I think most likely the best option is the center school again, with some type of indoor and outdoor arrangement. We felt that the logistics worked well. We could have an indoor-outdoor option. We already know the setup. We know the cost associated with that. So that's where we seem to come to a consensus at the last meeting. I think we will obviously continue to discuss it as we identify a time frame.
Great.
To see if the outdoor component is feasible in the middle of the winter.
Sounds like we're on the same page. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just a couple more quick things. We are resuming the Tri-Town meeting. The next meeting is scheduled to take place October 14th. I was not sure, I know Brian was the last representative. I did not know if the board had a formal, okay, perfect. So I will make sure you were on that list. Trick-or-treating. So people have been calling, looking for information on whether or not the town plans to have trick-or-treating. We discussed this today at our department head meeting, and it was discussed on the statewide COVID call that I had this afternoon. The CDC released guidelines that they are recommending. They are not recommending any door-to-door trick-or-treating. The state is still reviewing what guidance they plan to put out. DPH right now is looking anywhere from an informal guidelines to regulations. They're not sure what's going to come down the way. We discussed internally if the state comes out with informal guidelines, what we should look at as a town, if we feel safe with still having some type of trick-or-treating. We've talked about possibly sponsoring something ourselves on like that morning, because it's a Saturday, and if there's something that we could pull off safely and just something to offer for kids. So we are still working on that. We plan to talk about that over the next few weeks and come back at your next meeting with an agenda item on what we need to do for the town and have you decide if we're going to move forward or not. So that is in progress. Regarding the COVID updates, so today the DPH was supposed to be sending out to the local boards of health updated regulations regarding restaurants, beverage stations, and seating capacity. They plan to allow additional seating. So currently, I think it's 6 people per person at a restaurant. They're going to increase that to 10. They're going to allow beverage stations in. They are going to allow beverage stations that, like in convenience stores, to reopen. And they are talking about expanding overall seating capacity inside. So those are coming out to Board of Health today. They go into effect Monday, the 28th. So they're not giving much time for the departments to figure out how to enforce them, but they are going into effect on Monday, the 28th.
Okay.
And that is all I have for you all this evening.
Thank you.
And the town clerk has confirmed it's 200 signatures or more for a special town meeting by petition.
All right, so, moving on, we will now be having a public hearing, the purpose of which is to legalize the placement of a utility pole on town land, which is a public way as required by Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22. A notice of the public hearing was posted on 9/11/2020, reading as follows. Notice is hereby given in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, that the Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing regarding pole location requesting permission to locate one utility pole and relocate one utility pole. Both poles are owned jointly by Verizon and Hudson Light and Power Department. And the request is to place one jointly owned pole numbered T 14.5, E 14.5 on the northwesterly side of Gleasondale Road at a point approximately 200 or 102 feet southwesterly from the center line of Rock Bottom Road, and relocate one jointly owned pole numbered T 16E .16 on the southwesterly side of the Gleasondale Road at a point approximately 20 feet northeasterly from the center line of Rock Bottom Road. And the rest of it just says that we're going to be having it via Zoom on today. The list of abutters is as follows. For 0 Gleasondale Road, Town of Stowe. 521 Gleasondale Road, I guess that one was wrong. Maureen, where it lists 0 Gleasondale Road twice?
Sometimes that happens with parcels are.
Okay. 521 Gleasondale Road, Spadia, Eden Lawrence. 0 Gleasondale Road, Perkins Edward H. 501 Gleasondale Road, Stowe Industrial LLC. 479 Gleasondale Road, Cohen Family Revocable Trust. 478 Gleasondale Road, Kendall Aaron. 506 Gleasondale Road, Poliak James A. 512 Gleasondale Road, McBride Keith M. 516 Gleasondale Road, Yates Thomas. 0 Gleasondale Road, Perkins Edward H. 484 Gleasondale Road, Marado John G. 520 Gleasondale Road, Viola Jason. 522 Gleasondale Road, Rotondi Gray Isaiah. 524 Gleasondale Road, Brown Amber. 526 Gleasondale Road, Austin Mary Kay. 528 Gleasondale Road, Seiler William. 530 Gleasondale Road, Hunter Brian L. and 25 Rock Bottom Road, Ash Trust LLC. And for Hudson Light and Power, we should have Chris Monsini and Al Bessett for Verizon. Are you gentlemen there?
Yes, I'm here. This is Chris from Hudson Light and Power.
Okay.
I'm great.
How about Al? All right.
Yeah.
So Al is not here at the moment. All right. Are there any questions or comments from the board members about displacement?
did we request more information, or, from Verizon about exactly in Hudson Light and Power as to why it needs to be in that location, given that it's an issue with an abutter?
They did revise it.
Okay.
So now, that family has weighed in and approved
Okay.
of the new plan.
Okay.
Wait,
Where's that information?
yeah, that wasn't in our,
It's not in the packet, yeah.
It happened before. This was originally filed in March, and the butters were notified, and there was a family that had a disabled family member, and right where the pole was at the end of the ramp.
Right.
So we went back to Verizon, who were initially actually filed, and they redrew the plan for this round when it came back on.
but the planning
But
board is
the
still.
planning board weighed in on August 26th,
And
saying that it was still a problem.
Jesse and I have talked, and so,
That, I believe that
I
was
have-
part of the information that she sent, that Maureen sent, that he's been involved and it appears to have cleared up the issue, placed in front of the Cohen's property.
Can you show me?
Can you show me where that is?
Yeah.
I have a memo
I'm
that says
sorry,
the office.
I'm only
This is
seeing the memo from,
I have a statement from the
This is
family
the-
stating that they approved.
okay, it's fine with me if they approve, I just, I didn't wanna,
Yeah, I didn't see
I don't
that
wanna do
either,
anything
so
where I,
This is, it's on the cover page
cover
Okay.
page of,
I think,
of this
I'm getting the
stuff
feeling
that
that those
Maureen
with the
sent out.
tangible packets saw it, and those with the electronic packets didn't.
well, I was reading electronically.
I think that was just a note to
Oh.
you, Tom, on that page.
Could we, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could we ask Chris to state the rationale for, I actually don't see that. It,
Okay.
may I?
Yep. Chris,
Chris?
can you?
Yeah.
Chris, my name's Jim Salvi, I'm one of the selectmen, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We do have a plot plan that shows the existing poles and the proposed one. Can you tell us in layman's language why you need the new pole?
So I honestly, to be honest, I can't speak as well as Verizon could about the detail of this. So the way this works, it is a joint owned pole. However, it's Verizon's territory to set and maintain these poles. We split our territories. This is a project that's driven by Mass DOT. I'm sure you guys know, obviously, to repair the bridge. So these placements initially were kind of established by the state and Verizon. And then we were brought in as Hudson Light and Power to more or less see if these locations would work for us. We went out and met with them and we said, yeah, they would work for what we need to do. And then Maureen sent me basically the correspondence back and forth between you guys, or I should say the town of Stowe and Verizon. I don't really know the detail of how they came up with the new location. They just asked again if that would work for us and our wires and all that stuff.
So is the bottom line, Chris, that the new placement is driven by DOT and Verizon and that neither one of them is here tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. Initially, the placement was driven by DOT. What needs to happen, and I don't want to say too much on it because I'm not sure of this poll in particular, but we're moving, or these poles are being moved to a temporary location, and then they're being moved back to what would be their final location after the fact. What needs to happen on that bridge project is all of those poles, or I should say all of the overhead cables on those poles need to be far enough out so that way they can swing their cranes and put everything in place, and everything can be brought back in closer to the road. So yeah, I guess the long answer to a simple question is that it's driven by Mass DOT making sure they have clearance to rebuild the bridge.
But temporary clearance would not suggest to me that they need a new permanent pole that is closer to the road. I'm not following that.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure on this poll in particular. I literally just got the
Okay.
invite for this morning, and I just stepped on to be a representative for Hudson Light and Power.
I understand, having been in that position and other things.
Mr. Chair, can I suggest that, given that Verizon's not on the call, that we continue the hearing to the next meeting, and, because we can't really have a conversation if they're not present.
Yeah,
I-
I'm fine with that.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Completely. And I would like some resolution of the issue of whether the Cohn family on the planning board is satisfied or not.
I agree with you. Yep.
I'm on the call for Verizon.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay.
So-
Now, I've been listening to this conversation. Which poll exactly are you talking about? That's the issue.
And who is this speaking?
This is Paul Davis. I'm representing Verizon on your behalf.
Okay.
Tom, may I?
Jim?
Al, I'm sorry, did you say your name was Paul or Al? Paul. Paul, it's new poll T period 14 and a half, E period 14 and a half.
Okay. And what is exactly the issue with that poll?
The issue is why?
Oh, why? Okay, so from the field meeting that was done by MassDOT, Verizon, Hudson Power and Light, and all other utilities involved, that particular pole would be considered a midspan pole to allow Hudson Power and Light to get their service down to Rock Bottom Road easier from where it's located now, which is basically up more towards the bridge. So, in essence, what Hudson Power and Light also wanted to do was they wanted to get away from those houses on the southeastern side of Gleason Road, which is where the existing pole line runs now. So they would have rather put the service across the street and be able to get them away from those houses, plus provide service down to Rock Bottom Road at an easier angle than what it is now. So really what's driving that pole and that location was the electrical service.
So you're aware, of course, that Chris from HLP just said it was being driven by Verizon.
Well, it is. Verizon derives the design up front, and then the utilities meet in the field, and when we all met in the field to look at the initial NDOT design, the power company would like to have that pole placed there because it would make it easier for their service to get down to Rock Bottom Road.
Yeah, if I can interject, Paul, thank you for the clarification on that. Now, I just pulled up these prints, and I do recall a discussion with our line superintendent. So, based on the print I have, that would be correct. It looks like that was added after the fact for the purpose of exactly what Paul said. It would be a mid-span pole because with these wires moving on the other side of the road, we still have Rock Bottom Road. And in that case, the existing pole, which is further down, I guess further south, the span would be too long and the angle wouldn't work to get down Rock Bottom Road.
That's correct.
That is correct. Yep.
So may I ask something?
If I could get a chance to speak?
Hold, one second, please.
Oh, okay, we're the Cohens, and I have more information I can give you is all.
Okay.
Okay, well, I want
All right, go ahead then, please. Can
Okay.
you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Laurel Cohen, and I live at 481 Gleasondale Road. Through Maureen, we've gone back and forth, and we have figured out what's going on here. When the original plan was given last February or March, the wrong map was submitted, which showed a pole being put right in front of our house, which is already right on the road. There are in effect two intersections that are Gleasondale Road, Rock Bottom Road. Because the small bridge at the old Rock Bottom Road is shut down, they now use the entrance to the mill as Rock Bottom Road. So we received a corrected map that we're just on here to make sure that the correct map is the one being used, that shows they don't actually want to put the pole in front of our property, so it shouldn't be a problem to us. The pole actually is supposed to be put on the other side of the bridge right at the mill entrance.
Mr. Chairman, I gotta tell you, I'm thoroughly confused.
What used to be the driveway on which is known as 501 Gleasondale, is now called Rock Bottom Road. But in reality, what that is the entrance to the Gleasondale Industrial Park, which uses the address 501 Gleasondale.
Well, I gotta,
And what happened was suddenly there became two Rock Bottom Road. There became two Rock, because Rock Bottom Road where we live has 1-3 Rock Bottom Road, and then it's a dead end because the bridge is no longer serviceable. So to make it serviceable, they just decided to use Rock Bottom Road for the industrial park.
As long as you are using the corrected map that was sent to us, that's dated August 28th, 2020, that shows the pole being at 501 Gleasondale Road at the industrial park, that we don't have a problem with this.
The
well,
original request was to put it in front of 479, which the actual location was directly in front of our living room window. And there's no, from our living room window, from the edge of our house to the white line on Gleasondale Road is less than 10 feet. So that would mean the pole would basically be in the road.
I mean, I'm very glad that Mr. and Mrs. Cohen are on the line and are telling us that they're pleased with it, and I am looking at that map. But for me at least, the August 28th, 2020 map in and of itself does not wear its meaning on its sleeve. And the verbal explanation that we just got from Verizon and HLP was, for me at least, less than clear. Maybe the other members of the board understood it, but I didn't. Usually with these poll hearings, we get a written narrative that explains the rationale for the location or relocation. I don't see that here. I could use that. I would still like, just personally, I would like to table this to get some clarification that the planning board is now okay. And I would like that written narrative that we usually get, just a couple paragraphs. Maybe I'm the only one.
I'd like to have the correct map as part of our documentation of the hearing.
I think the map that's in here is the correct one, that has the
Yeah.
date that was referenced.
Yeah, okay.
So I do think this is the
Received
correct
August
map.
28th, because I'm looking at an August 18th at the top.
Well, but I think it's the stamped
The stamp-
received,
stamped received
August
is that one?
28th is what they were referencing.
I see,
Yes.
so the
Yes.
pool is
Received on
now in
August
front of,
28th.
Okay,
it's not in front of 501. Okay.
Well, which one is 501? It's in front of a house.
So
501 is the industrial park.
Industrial
this
park.
is 501.
Okay.
Didn't you, Mrs. Cohen, didn't you say that you were at 501? No?
No, that's the industrial.
We're at 481.
I guess I just don't understand, because if anything, it's gonna bring the wire closer to the road. Because the new pole is closer to the road.
But
If,
there's no house down there.
But I thought they were talking about sidewalks and stuff.
The
This
new
is why I
pole is
really-
gonna be 7 feet off the edge of the road,
right,
and there will be no wire over the road at all.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, there's a road crossing there currently with wires going over the road, where the new design with this proposed pole will take the wires away from the road. The new pole is gonna be 7 feet off the edge of the road. So what you don't see on the petition is the existing poles and the existing cables and services. However, again, with what you just said, the new pole is gonna be 7 feet off the edge of the road, and the new cables that are gonna be placed are not gonna be over the road at all.
No, that wasn't my concern. My concern was the existing poles are shown. And if the existing poles on the west side are the only poles on the west side, then the cable must be running in kind of a hypotenuse of the triangle behind the location of the proposed new pole. It must be further away from the road. So I'm having a hard time understanding why this is an advantage, why bring the line closer to the road, though not to the road, is an advantage for either HLP or Verizon. That's what I don't get.
Well, again, I'll explain it again, that the electric company was driving the location of the new pole being petitioned tonight because it was going to be easier for them to run new lines to provide service down to Rock Bottom Road. And also, like the gentleman from the electric company mentioned, Chris, it also cut down on the span length that's currently there now. So that particular pole, 14.5, is what's called a midspan pole. And midspan poles typically are placed to cut down on very long spans and or provide access points for new service.
So Chris, does a pole in the middle of these two existing ones make providing additional service easier?
Yeah, so this pole, exactly like Paul said, this pole, now that I get deeper into this, this sole purpose of this is to feed Rock Bottom Road, because the poles that are being reworked out on Gleasondale Road with the new positioning and everything, we don't really have the ability to feed down Rock Bottom Road to that industrial park with the new angles and the new spans. So that's kind of what, our field crew came up with, was that we would need to place a mid-span pole there to get the angle and to get the span length appropriate.
Can I ask a question?
Courtney?
So, Chris, would you be putting the pole close to the street like that so that it's easier to access and you can maintain the wires? Is that part of it, or, I'm trying to get at Jim's question, why are you moving the wires closer to the street?
Yeah, so obviously we would need our infrastructure to be close enough to the road that we can access it to maintain it. But it's still, like as Paul said, it's still going to be 7 feet off of the road, which is sufficient, to say the least.
Why does a mid-span pole make providing more power easier?
It's not about providing more power. It's that when the poles on Gleasondale Road get moved, we no longer have the capability to feed down Rock Bottom Road because of the new positioning. So we need to have the appropriate angles to, for guying or for a push brace, in order to feed down that road to our existing customers. So when the poles get reworked out on Gleasondale, that obviously changes everything. It changes the angles, because we're feeding two different ways. We're feeding over the bridge, but we're also feeding down Rock Bottom Road.
Megan?
So I think, sorry, Courtney, do you want to hop in?
No.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay.
Next.
So I think what's happening is that the existing pole, the T16, E16, is the one, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but is that the one that is currently feeding to 16.1 on Rock Bottom Road? Do you hear me?
I'm sorry, can you
Sorry,
repeat
yep,
that?
I'll say it. So is what's happening T16, E16 is going to be taken away, but that's the one that is currently feeding to T16-1, E16-1.
You just said the same number twice.
It's
So
on
there's
here,
actually,
16,
there's two
16-1.
things happening.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So there are wires feeding from T16 or E16 over to T16-1.
Okay,
There are single phase wires which feed that way.
Right.
On the other side of the bridge, which is not shown on this petition map, we have a three-phase line which feeds from Gleasondale Road over, that little pocket of water between Rock Bottom and Gleasondale.
right,
And that feeds a three-phase transformer bank.
okay,
Because this whole thing is getting reworked, that line also needs to come down.
Gotcha.
So now we're gonna run that from this side also.
okay, so
So we need to feed both of the single phase and the three-phase line down this end of Rock Bottom Road.
So the reason that 14 and a half needs to go in is because you can't feed from T14 all the way to T16, like they would have to. There needs to be like a midpoint. That's
Right,
what
so-
they're talking about with the angles. Does that make sense?
Exactly, and you can see on this, it kind of shows you the dashed lines.
Yeah,
If we went straight from T14 to T16-1,
it's too long.
number one, we wouldn't have the correct angle, but also we would be committing an aerial trespass going over
Right,
those people's properties.
right. So that makes sense to me.
So what's shown is, and maybe this, so what,
Personally,
what's shown as existing poles is actually the reworked poles, the locations after DOT puts them back?
I believe these ones that we're talking about, for instance, this one, 14 and a half, this would be a final location, yes.
Because
And then as far as the other ones, I believe, and maybe Paul can help me on this, I believe this would be final locations for these also.
all right, because what's confusing me is you keep saying that the reworked locations are no good, but the map doesn't show reworked locations, it shows existing locations. So are you saying that what's marked as existing locations reflects reworked locations?
Yeah, well, yeah, you can see that pole E16 is moving further north on Gleasondale Road. And then the other thing I had mentioned, which is not shown on this, is the opposite end, or the northern side of Gleasondale Road, where we have wires that go from Gleasondale down onto Rock Bottom that feed that transform. Those need to move also.
I'm not
So,
gonna hold this up any longer.
what I'm
Courtney's
saying,
been trying
Courtney's
to
been
say
trying to speak for a while.
so, I thought that going into this conversation that my primary concern was that the Cohens be served and that they not have a pole in the middle of their access to their home. And that is my primary concern with this, rather than the mechanics of how the electric service works for the neighborhood. I trust the professionals.
other comments? I think I'm starting to get it, that what you're moving is, T16 is moving 20 feet, 20 feet north.
Correct.
And then you're putting the new 14 and a half, E14 and a half in there. So really, you're just moving one by 20 feet so that you can get the correct angle. And then the other one, I'm not quite sure why it's going in, but
You're right. We don't need to know the mechanics of it as long as the Cohens are happy. I'm happy.
The new map, it's not a problem for us, it's
Okay.
fine, that new map.
Thank you, Laurel.
okay. Thank you.
I'm tempted to be in that position,
Mhm.
but I'm not going to. I am glad the Cohens are happy. That was my
Mhm.
main thing, as you said, but,
Mhm.
and I do trust the professionals.
Mhm.
but I feel like it falls short of the threshold of understanding that I need to be comfortable.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm basically, the story tonight from Verizon HLB, let's face it, has shifted. It has been confusing, and I just feel like it falls short of the threshold that I need to feel comfortable with this. It's probably fine, but I don't know, I just don't understand it.
Okay.
Other thoughts?
I mean, I'm
fine.
I'm fine closing it and voting. It does make sense to me, given what it looks
Makes
like
sense
down
to
there,
you?
but.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me that they need to shorten the span and also not make an aerial trespass to feed Rock Bottom Road into that middle pole creates a point to bend the wire down Rock Bottom Road.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the straight line here, Jim, from there to there is aerial trespass over this property.
No, and that makes sense to me, except that what I thought this was saying was that there already is an aerial trespass.
No, because it goes over the road. Like, right now, it's going over the road. So,
Right, so.
16 to 16, it goes right over the road.
Yes.
And they're gonna take that, they're gonna move that, and then they can't get it to go over the road again in the new relocation. So what they need to do is pull it off of 14, but they have to add another pole, because otherwise they would just be doing a straight shot, and they can't do that because it would be an aerial trespass over the property. And so this one sort of just gives them the line to be able to do it without having to do a straight line.
So that's the piece of information I was missing, is that currently it goes over the road.
Yeah.
And that for some reason, because of the work that's being done, it's being relocated just onto the western part of the road.
Mhm,
And with the existing poles, there would be an aerial trespass and it was too long.
mhm.
That's what I needed.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some information I think is lacking in this. It would have been nice to have before this meeting, to be honest, but I think that there's enough of it there to make a story
Well, now I
make
get it.
sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and my apologies. Normally, I mean, we'd be much better prepared for this, but said I literally just found out about the meeting, and you know, I would have had these conversations with my team long before this. So, but Paul, thanks for bringing that up. I was able to dig up some of my stuff to you know, see the notes on the field meetings.
Wow, thank you both for being here, or we would have been totally lost.
Well, we wouldn't have been approving it.
That's right.
One of the things, Chris, from my standpoint, I agree with Jim. In the past, you guys have generally done a very nice job of providing us a narrative. I would hate to see that go away. And, you know, it might have made this go a lot smoother if there had been a good narrative to go along with this. So,
I agree.
and Paul, same comment to you guys. Hudson Light and Power has done a lot of business with us over the years, and generally they provide a narrative to go along with the maps and why they want to do this and things like that.
Okay, duly noted.
Yep. One of the comments that I did see that came from our highway superintendent, Steve Nadeau, was that he wanted to make sure that you guys were coordinating with MassDOT and you wouldn't be placing poles where the sidewalks are going to be going.
No, that's all taken care of in the design based on what MassDOT works with their designers with. So they very rarely, if at all, put poles in sidewalks. So that's all been designed by MassDOT. That's taken care of by them.
Okay. The comment was that he has seen Verizon put poles in the middle of sidewalks, so he just wanted to make sure that that doesn't happen.
No, that very rarely happens. If that ever happens and it's seen, it's usually an existing pole where they're waiting for a new pole to be replaced.
Yep. But I suspect that if we see one in the middle of a sidewalk, you guys will be moving it. So,
Yeah, I would assume so as well.
all right.
I move we close the public hearing.
I don't think I've asked if any of the public has had anything to say. I know that the Cohens had comments. Are there any other members of the public that have comments on this, for this poll hearing? Bill, Mr. Byron, I think you'll have to unmute.
Thank you. I guess some residents in the Gleasondale area have seen these maps. Due to COVID and my not being able to enter the town building at will like I always used to, I'm not up to snuff on a lot of this stuff. I have not seen these maps. I would say that if Laurel is happy with what's happening, and that this poll that has been the point of this horrible discussion here is actually going at the southern side of the bridge, which is the second entrance to Rock Bottom, not the Rock Bottom Road that I have known for 83 years. I wish I could see these maps before you made a decision, but I think I'm going to listen to Laurel. She knows what she's doing down there, let me tell you. And but that's my own comment. I wish I had been privy to these maps earlier. But, so the two houses, a duplex that's on the Rock Bottom Road that goes in on the north side of the bridge is still going to be serviced as it currently is. Whoa. Oh, what's this?
That's the map.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Big enough, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that, just appeared on my screen too.
I understand, well, I'm beginning to understand that what they're really going to service is the industrial park.
Right.
And nothing to do with what we know as Rock Bottom Road dwellings. I do know a power line goes to the industrial park across the road, across the river, and I begin to understand that that's what they're going to do. And that pole that you're talking about is way down here, and you can't see my finger, but I'm with you. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, Bill. Are there any other comments from the public? All right, I'll accept a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Now we
Sign it.
I move that the board approve and sign the application by Hudson Light and Power to install a new pole and relocate a pole on Gleasondale Road as indicated in the order of joint pole location received by the Selectmen's Office, August 24th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? And I think we have to sign something, don't we, Maureen?
Somewhere.
Notarize. Let's see, first Courtney has to sign one page. See if I can get Linda up here to notarize. And then the board has to sign this.
Well, Chris, it looks like we're signing it, so you're good, you'll be good to go.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. think, no, 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 no.
Thank you.
Those are the names that you're bringing.
Oh, thank you.
Great.
It's always something. Always something.
I know, seriously.
All right. On to the next item. Next up, we have a discussion of a proposed policy by the police department relating to interactions with transgender individuals, presented by Acting Chief Mike Sallese.
Hey,
Mike,
good evening.
how are you tonight?
I'm well, thank you. So,
If you-
should I start?
Yeah, if you can fill in the board a little bit on what you've been up to.
Okay. So, as the board knows, over the past, I've been reviewing the Stowe Police Department policies to see where we're lacking and how we can do better. And over the past few months, I've met with a few groups and organizations that have planned events around Stowe. Through talks with residents around town, I've been informed that our transgender population of Stowe is growing. And reviewing our policies, I found that we have no policies on the police interacting with transgender individuals. And such examples are how do we address each individual, properly search each person if arrested, or handle cell placement if necessary. Policy would help guide our officers in proper procedure to ensure the rights of this protected class and to treat all residents of Stowe respectfully. The purpose of the policy is to establish guidelines for the appropriate treatment of transgender individuals who come in contact with the Stowe Police Department. It is the general policy of the Stowe Police Department to treat all individuals with dignity, respect, and professionalism. Therefore, this policy shall be enforced in order to create a mutual understanding, prevent discrimination and conflict, and ensure the appropriate treatment of transgender individuals within our community. I requested that the Mass Chief's attorney review the attached policy, which he did look at and approve. Other communities have similar policies. So I'm tonight respectfully requesting that the board accept and adopt the proposed policy, which I did send over to your office. Are there any questions?
Questions? Anyone?
I did have a chance to talk to Acting Chief Sallese yesterday. I'm just mostly really grateful for you bringing this forward. I think it's really important. I think, and I work with an organization that does a lot of training around this issue, so we talked about some of the language issues, but I guess my biggest concern or suggestion would be that on top of having the training or having this policy, that we have some training built in, just because it's an issue for a lot of people that they're not familiar with, that there's a lot of misconception, misunderstandings, and I think having some personal training and opportunity to talk some of these issues out would add to would really back up the policy that you're proposing.
So not only with the training, but definitely like a scenario-based training would be looked at, because you want to put the officer in a situation where you expect things that are in the policy, but then you want to throw an outlier at them so they would know how to respond. And that's, so definitely a scenario-based training would be definitely appropriate.
Jim?
Hi, Mike, it's Jim. First of all, thanks very much for bringing this forward. I think it's a great idea. I mean, the practicalities of these sorts of situations must be very difficult, and it's great to be proactive and have a policy ahead of time. I only had a comment on one paragraph, and it's more of it's a little bit more than grammatical, just something I'd like you to consider. Section Roman numeral 3, capital A, so this is at the bottom of page 3 of 7. There's a paragraph that has a whole bunch of mays in there. All officers may address TGN individuals by the individual preferred name. TGN individuals may be addressed using the titles and pronouns appropriate. Then the officer may respectfully ask the individual. May is permissive. I wonder if you'd consider changing those mays to something like should.
So I was thinking of going back and forth, and I thought shall was too strong.
I agree with you on that. I agree
So I
shall
think
is,
should would be a good word to switch in there, and I was going back and forth. Originally, I had the word shall in there, and then not every scenario can have a definite like that, so should would be a good alternative.
and I first thought about shall as well, and I didn't like it because, you know, there are going to be errors, but I think should conveys at least the spirit of what you're trying to do more than may does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? Or?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this forward and for getting this policy on the books. I think it's important to sort of second what Ellen was saying. Anytime I think we change a policy, that it is important that there is a training that goes along with it. And so I think that's important here. I think that's important really any new policies that get brought forward. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And any other comments?
I
No?
have nothing to add, but thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Well, and that's it. You know, I've been aware this policy's been coming for probably a month, 6 weeks, something like that. Mike's been having, you know, a number of conversations with me, and he definitely convinced me that it was a good thing to do, and, you know, he opened my eyes a bit on this. So it's, thank you, Mike. And so, in that case, were you making a suggestion that he check, because we're approving a policy, we're gonna have it with the amendment that should?
Yeah, so if Mike is adopting that, Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the selectmen vote to approve the addition of a police policy as amended as discussed tonight, interaction with transgender individuals as presented by Acting Chief Michael Sallese.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Mike?
And I will get those changes and I'll send it to your office.
Yep, and so that's 2 for 2 policies. You're batting pretty good right now.
Sounds good.
The next item on the agenda, I generally wouldn't have put this on, I would have done it in liaison reports, but since we had Mike here, and we've got some, you know, our new select board members, I figured you might like to hear about the plan that has been put in place. It was put in place, what, 6, 7 years ago, Jim?
I think 6.
And, you know, it started because we were having a lot of traffic problems with apple picking season, things like that, and so a whole plan was put in. You know, it involves callings, it involves all the orchards in town, and I figured you might like to just hear what Mike's been doing with it this year, and, you know, keep it real quick, but take it away, Mike.
So back in 2014, the Stowe Fire Department Chief Joe Landry and at the time Police Chief Bill Bosworth came up with a traffic mitigation plan. It was voted on by the Selectmen and it's been in use since. And it's really a proactive measure to protect citizens and all who visit Stowe during peak apple season and to schedule and any non-scheduled events which could contribute to a hazardous condition. It's basically a plan that's we've developed with the orchards and with the Collins Foundation, so they know what to expect from us, what we can expect from them, how we can communicate better, how we can ensure that traffic continues to move, and how emergency vehicles can access all points of town during heavy traffic. We have at one of the major choke points is at Whitman Street at Sudbury, so there is a detail officer there on the weekends, usually between 11 and 3, but sometimes we can adjust those times depending on weather and what else is going on, what other planned events. And we end up, we've been also been able to close, this year something different, we've been able to work with Google Maps and ways to close down some roads, so it really just keeps traffic off of the back roads. People are using some of the neighborhoods as cut-throughs to get quicker access to the orchards instead of keeping them on the main roads that we like to keep them on to keep traffic flowing. Like I said, we've been doing this since 2014. The plan has worked well, and we met with all the orchards, and we're continuing to use the same plan. We did a little bit of additional reach out this year because of COVID, and that the orchards are they can only have a certain amount of people. We came up with some plans on if they reach that maximum, which is highly unlikely, but if they do, how we can shut down, and that's access to those particular orchards, such as Carver Hill or Shelburne or Honeypot or any of them, how we can work together to keep everybody safe, and what they need to do and how they can access us to assist them.
Questions, comments? No? All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for the update, Mike.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Guys, have a good night.
Two. Next, we have hiring of a per diem tree worker and plow driver for the highway department. Steve, are you on by any chance? I haven't
Good
seen-
evening, Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
Yes, I
there you
am.
go. All right. Would you like to explain what you are up to?
As we discussed at the last meeting, that we have had some changes in personnel, and what I'm looking to do now is get some per diem help on the books that we initially use on an on-call basis. I did put up a sign in the center of town a couple of weeks ago, and we got interest for plow drivers, and out of that, a couple of the plow drivers showed interest for some of the other jobs that I got permission to post for. Namely, T. Gray, who used to work for the highway department for about 20 years, retired from the town. A couple of years ago, he just retired from Maynard Fire, and has volunteered to come back and take a per diem position to help teach some of the younger kids the tree bucket truck and help them get their licensure for working around the power lines. And he also knows all the town plow routes and has offered to help out during the winter to fill in if one of our guys needs to take time off or is sick. So I'm recommending that we bring Tim back on board as a per diem, as needed on call basis.
And Denise, my understanding is Steve's talked to you about this?
Yep.
And you're good with it?
I recommend favorable action.
All right. Are there any questions from the board? Jim?
Just for Steve and Denise, Timmy is a retiree. Could we document maybe in an email form with him or with the Middlesex Retirement System that he's been counseled on the working after retirement limits?
Certainly.
Great, thank you.
It's tough being a retirement lawyer, isn't it?
Well-
Keep them out of trouble. You know too much, Jim.
Thank you.
I know how to get towns in trouble, and I don't want it to happen here.
It's very easy.
All right.
Thank you for your attention to detail.
Yep.
You ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
On the recommendation of the highway superintendent and the town administrator, I move to authorize the town administrator to hire Tim Gray as a per diem tree worker and plow driver for the town of Stowe Highway Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve.
You're 2 for 2 now, too, in a row. Let's see. Next is discussion and appointment of an associate member to the Stowe Planning Board of Appeals. David Hartnagel. David, are you on, sir? I see you there.
I am, good evening.
Good evening, David. How are you tonight?
I'm good, how are you all?
I think we're doing okay. We're all masked up, so. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in the ZBA?
Sure. I relocated with my family to Stowe a little over 2 years ago from neighboring Acton. We've got 3 small kids, 2 in center school right now. I have, currently I'm in-house counsel at a company called Public Consulting Group, which is largely a public contractor. We do management and service work for states, school districts, municipalities, and from health and human services to education to technology. And before that, I served in various roles in private practice at Ropes and Gray, but also worked at the Attorney General's office and a quick stint at the Middlesex DA's office as well. I think my interest in the ZBA is essentially that after a couple of years of now being in Stowe, I'm looking for ways to contribute, serve, and be more involved in the community. I looked at the available options and thought the ZBA might be a nice fit. Obviously, I've got a legal background, and as a result, there is some intersection of that with what the ZBA does in terms of, looking at the regulations and applying them appropriately. I've also done a little bit of work in my prior positions on property-related matters, so I've got some knowledge, certainly not a lot compared to the current folks, but some knowledge that I hope I can bring, and at least would provide me with some experience to dive on in, as opposed to some of the other opportunities that were available. So, but also considering that this would be my first way of serving on a board or commission, that's why I thought an associate member might be a nice way to initially get involved.
You do know that they never let you go.
I'm sure.
Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
I just want to make a comment. Dave is actually a neighbor of mine, had reached out to me and wanted to get involved. And I said, there is a position that I know that ZBA is looking for new people in town to come in. And so I had recommended that he reach out to them. I do think he's got an interesting perspective. I think would just be good on anywhere we could put him in town. And so since ZBA is open, I think that it's good. So yeah. So thanks, Dave, for stepping forward. Any kind of volunteering is well appreciated in this town, for sure.
It's always a good thing. Anyone else? Jim?
David, have you had a chance to go to a ZBA meeting?
Yes, I've actually attended 2 so far, and I'm still here.
Great. Thank you for stepping forward. I think it's great to see people who haven't been in town very, very long stepping forward to do this kind of thing. It's always good to get new volunteers, so thank you.
And that's it. And the ZBA at their meeting of September 9th voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen appointment of David. And I'll say one of the things is, David, it's very nice of you to step forward. We've had vacancies on this for a while, and it's nice to have somebody that's qualified and can come in and hit the ground running.
Absolutely.
So it's much appreciated stepping forward. Any other comments?
I'd like to say thank you for stepping forward, as the ZBA has some, as you will find, or you already have, they have all sorts of long-standing work. It's not a small undertaking, so thank you very much.
Sure.
And you'll probably learn more about the town than you ever wanted. But that case, I'm happy to take a motion.
I'll give you a motion. On the recommendation of the Zoning Board of Appeals, I move to appoint David Hartnagel as a Zoning Board of Appeals Associate to fulfill the remainder of a 5-year term expiring June 30th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
May I make one comment?
Yes, ma'am.
So there's still one full member and 2 associate member spots available for anyone that is interested. Information is on our website.
And if I could add, the ZBA has a history of having very few, basically one woman at a time, for at least the last decade. So if there's women out there who are interested in zoning issues, I hope you'll consider volunteering.
Absolutely.
And I'll be recruiting.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next up is Honeypot Hill. I am going to let our town administrator take this on because things have been changing.
And Chelsea should be signing on right now.
I'm here.
Oh, perfect. So originally the request was for 1-day liquor license to cover their season for cider. Last night we got an email from Chelsea that they are withdrawing that request for the 1-day license. However, they would like to offer samples on the premises through their farming and winery license that they were granted from the state. In accordance with the ABCC requirements, that requires a vote of this board to allow sampling, provided the samples are consumed on the premises. They must be a product of the winery or the farm. The sample cannot exceed 1 ounce, and no individual shall be served more than 5 samples.
Will they be IDing people as well?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's always a good thing.
I wanted to know that it was like written down somewhere.
No, yeah, it's gonna be run the exact same as last year, just
Okay.
no full force, so every precaution will be the same.
Gotcha.
All right.
Could
Jim?
we get an update on other issues at Honeypot? Was there a complaint this weekend about overcrowding?
Yes, so the Board of Health did receive a couple complaints regarding overcrowding on the tractor rides and in the store. I know, Chelsea, did they come out and see you today?
Yeah, they did. They came out and did a walkthrough. It was actually really great. They gave us some tips. They said they've received complaints from literally every business in the area, and they were surprised they hadn't received a complaint earlier. So we read the complaint, and we went over just like a brief inspection of a few things, and they were helpful and accommodating. So it went really well. And they said that it was, we've done a lot of COVID prep, so they said it was obvious that we had made a good effort. And they were like, there's just no way you're gonna avoid complaints completely. As long as you're working with us and letting us know what's going on, we have no problem with it.
I believe the public safety folks were fine with the apple picking season safety plan that's already in effect. They did not go out to review this request because it was not a full day, 1-day license, so they chose to not go on site. And I don't know the status of the fire department matter. I have not heard where that is in process.
Chelsea, do you know the status of the, I think it's a complaint about an illegal burn, do you know where that stands? Who are you dealing with on that, DEP?
I don't know. I'm curious about it, but we can talk about that another day. Unless you want to deal with it now. Agricultural is exempt from most outdoor burning laws, and we've been essentially harassed by the fire department 3 or 4 times now. So I'm not happy with it. I understand where they're coming from, and I'm happy to deal with the DEP on whatever they want to talk to me about, but we've talked to the chief about this before, and there's been no change, so.
So to be clear, I'm sure the fire department does not view it as harassment. I'm sure there's another side to that
I'm
story.
sure they don't.
How about the building department issue?
Well, I don't know. We're in full swing here. We don't have a lot of, this isn't what I signed on to talk about, so I'm not really prepared to give a full debrief of what's going on.
I think we're
Because-
entitled to, and I think we in fact have to consider the entire context. Am I wrong about that, Denise?
It's up to the board how you wish to proceed. I will say the last time I spoke to the building commissioner, I do believe that matter was rectified.
Okay. That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I honestly, I've been just working and trying to get through apple season, so.
You know, I think, Chelsea, the concern is that, you know, there've been a number of issues, and if we allow you to do this, what assurances are you going to give us that you're going to do it right?
The fact that you've had no problems up until this point, that went so well last year, and I've made every effort to do this correctly. I understand where you're coming from, but also I wasn't super involved in those other matters. I understand that those are also part of the business, but I'm trying to do things on the up and up, and I would like your support in that.
May I ask one question?
Chelsea,
But I don't
thank
know-
you for making a lot of effort to be prepared for doing business during COVID.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're trying. It's
And
just
also, thank
kind
you.
of overwhelming on all fronts, to be honest with you.
I can only imagine.
Jim?
Well, I don't want to monopolize. Does anybody else?
No, sorry. I don't. You can talk.
Chelsea, when we spoke the last time in March, my recollection was that you were getting prepared, that you weren't prepared at the time to sell cider made from apples from Honeypot. Instead,
Yeah, we have been working with the same guy we worked with last year. He's actually been taking a good amount of our cider, so that's where that's going.
and when you say taking a good amount, you mean he's taking your excess apples, turning it into hard cider, and that's what you'd be serving in these samples?
He actually takes our cider, not our apples. We have the press, so we press it and then we sell it to him.
And he distills it and he sells it back to you, and that's what these samples would be?
Yeah.
Okay, so they would be the product of your own apples?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just have to say, I'm very happy that after our hearing in August of 2019 and after our hearing in March of 2020, that you've got your ABCC license for the farmer winery, and you seem to be on track for coming to us in January of 2021 for the correct kind of pour license. So I'm very happy that it looks like in the fall of 2021, you'll be ready to go with all the right licenses. Given the
Yeah, we were a little I was personally a little blindsided because I was talking to the guy from the ABCC and he was like, yeah, 90% of the people who apply for this license don't understand that you need a pour license on top. And I was like, cool, that's a lot of panicking, which takes like another 3 to 5 months, and you can't submit it online, and it has to be in person. It's this whole thing. So that's why I'm coming to you, because I was so proud of myself for doing all the things right. And then they were like, no, wait a second, you can't do that thing. I was like, God darn it, you've got to be kidding me. So that's why this whole thing happened.
I have to say that personally, I'm not comfortable in this environment with the sampling proposal. I would prefer to just see you start. I mean, just me personally, I would prefer to see you start with the right licenses in 2021. If it weren't for the coronavirus and things and the concerns, the augmented concerns about traffic and congestion, I might be going for it, but in the current environment, I'm having a hard time with it.
Okay, I mean, we haven't had any traffic concerns. We had one complaint about a hayride, and it's been addressed. We've done, I think, a pretty overall good job of handling crowds. And the only reason I want to do this, which is very frustrating for me, is that I just think people need a break. Like, we're one of the few places people can come, and they really look forward to stuff like this. We've got a lot of requests for it this year, and we've come up with our own corona precautions. We've got sanitizer everywhere, but People just seem to really want it. They seem to think it's fun. We get a lot of neighbors in. The Stowe residents really like it because it's somewhere they can walk to and like have a nice afternoon. So that's part of why I want to do it so badly.
Any other comments?
I don't have a problem with the samples as long as it's like a, you know, it's disposable cups, it's one per person, or no more than 5. I think there is.
Yeah, it's going to be very restricted. Sorry to cut you off.
Right. No, it's okay. I think there is a way to do it. It is outdoors. It's not like they're serving the samples inside. Like I do think there is a way to do it, and I do think that anything that small businesses can do at this point to sort of keep interest going, as long as it's done with the COVID precautions, I personally don't have a problem with. I think that, you know, Honeypot's obviously very busy. There's, you know, have been traffic concerns in the past. It seems like everything is being addressed from where I'm standing. And I also think that we also need to sort of look into the future as to what this could look like, you know, in the future as far as the cider goes and them getting a pour license and it really being another place for people to be able to go in town, and God knows we're looking for, right? You know, other things in town to be able to do, and so I think, I mean, I'm okay with it given all the restrictions and making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, but it's my 2 cents.
I have every intention of limiting the amount of people. Obviously, from my perspective, it doesn't look good on us if we're not doing things thoroughly. I have no intention. I mean, I've got an immunocompromised dad and husband. I think about it every day. So
right.
I just, this is really just something that I think we can do responsibly, and that will add to people's sanity during a time that there is none. So that's my whole thought process. I just wanted to put it out there.
If I could just add, I understand what you're saying, but I'm fine being in dissent. I'm also folding in the context from last year. So keep in mind that last year was when we approved the trial run with one-day liquor licenses. And last year was when we got the assurances that, oh, next year I'll have the right licenses. Here we are the next year.
But I think, while I understand where you're coming from, absolutely, I personally don't have the history, so, but B, I think also, no one was expecting a pandemic when you all had this conversation last year, and I think everyone's just had to pivot and move, and so I think that, like, it sounds like she's on the right path to getting that done right now, given the fact that everyone's had to make.
Nothing prevented them from applying for the former winery license in August of 2019.
Okay.
As they said they were going to.
Okay.
Had they done that, they would have had it by October of 2019. And they could have applied for the pour license that they need now in January of 2020, pre-pandemic, except in China, so it would be all set.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest with you, Jim, I've had a lot of family issues in the last year. My brother's a heroin addict, and that contributed to me not being able to apply for the port license.
All the more reason, as I advised you months ago, that you should have hired one of the many lawyers who do this kind of thing and get it done for you. I don't mean to be unsympathetic. I am sympathetic, but I've been down this road before. And I'm not looking to convince any other members of the board, but I've heard these arguments before, twice before. And so I'm happy that they do seem to be on the road to getting the right licenses. But I'm not inclined, especially in light of the coronavirus, to do another trial run with some other sort of pseudo licenses. We've already done that.
Okay.
Well,
there's no limit to how many one-day licenses you can give to a business, even every year if you decided you wanted to.
Yeah.
And the person that I work with who runs Pony Shack Cider received multiple years of one-day licenses from the town with absolutely no pushback.
But you're not
And
applying.
I've had no issues at all with this cider time. I've really tried very hard to do it correctly, and I feel like you have blocked me at every turn, to be perfectly frank.
Chelsea, you may be killing the sale at this point.
Chelsea,
I'm sorry.
Jim,
I don't mean
you gotta
to
let
make
go.
it personal, I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah,
I
stop.
feel like it is, and I don't understand why.
You're eloquent.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I want to let you know, Chelsea, that you do have other support here in the room, so Jim is not likely to,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I
the
didn't mean to go, I
discussion to
just,
vote
that
down.
was
Yep.
kind of rough.
I would speculate that Mr. Salvi has a personal bias, and I respect that, and also feel that it is okay for us, as he said, he's happy to be a voice of dissent and not necessarily win the point.
On that note, I'm going to
What do
ask,
you mean by
if-
bias, though?
on that note, I'm going to ask if there might be a motion.
I mean that
We don't have a motion.
Okay, well,
This was
I think
unexpected.
you
right, but
are not,
essentially, a motion to allow them to provide
not in favor
samples in accordance
liquor
with,
licensing in
Yeah, we'll do
general,
that.
that you
How's
just
that?
want to regulate it in terms of liability.
Can I just
and,
talk over?
uh,
I'm gonna make
I
a
apologize.
motion that we support Honeypot Hill's desire to do, what's the right word?
Sampling.
Sampling
of
of their
hard
own,
cider.
hard cider, following the guidelines as presented to us in a memo dated 9/22/20.
Second.
All right. Chelsea, do you feel you can follow the guidelines that have been presented?
I would do nothing else, and I'm happy to, trust me.
All right. Well, in that case, all in favor?
Aye?
Aye. Or opposed?
Nay.
All right. You're good for your sampling, Chelsea.
Thank you, I appreciate it, and I'm sorry for making it personal and unprofessional. It's not right of me, but I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
All right.
Oh, I know about this.
And, yeah. Yeah. We've got two experts on.
I know. Is Doug on the line?
I think I have to say, I don't have a bias against liquor licenses.
I understand, I misspoke, I
That's
didn't use
okay.
I didn't use a good word.
I explained my reasons, and those were the reasons.
Yes, I apologize. I didn't.
All right. I think a few of you already know what this is about. But basically, the Town Hall Building Committee has asked us to appoint an ADA coordinator so that they can apply for a time-sensitive grant. It's something that, it came very, very late in the cycle, but given that it was time-sensitive, I put it on after I talked to Denise about it, and Courtney, I talked to Courtney about it, and I talked to Doug about it, so it was, I'm gonna let you guys, one of you guys, talk about what you're looking for and why.
Oh. You wanna talk?
Sure.
I told you I was gonna put that.
It is,
Courtney.
it is my understanding that in order to apply for a grant for improvements to the town hall related to handicap access, such as a lula or other type of a lift, for instance, that we need to have a person who is the coordinator of compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act around our public buildings. And so I have spoken with Craig Martin, and he is willing to assume those responsibilities, and that should do it.
Any other?
Clear?
I just had a question why we don't already have one.
Well, that is a good question,
Is it late?
Ellen.
And I was trying to remember if it came up before town meeting, or there was something that came up about this building and the front door not being accessible, and there was supposed to be money. And so anyway, it's just been on my mind, like,
Yeah, it's unclear why that position was not a position.
I suspect it's a current technicality, being that the building inspector would already know about these codes and likely. And
Yeah, I think so too. I think unless we've just
But most
never
towns would
applied
apply.
for, unless it's never been flagged to us before because we've never applied for an ADA grant. And I think that's what flagged it for Doug when he was going through the paperwork and realized that we didn't have anybody who was designated as the ADA compliance officer. It may just have been folded into Craig's responsibilities, which is fine, but they, as part of the grant, need to have
yeah.
a person who is designated for
I
it.
get that. I just-
And if I may add, we are required to have certain procedures and policies in place
Okay.
surrounding the ADA requirements. So we have to implement those before the grant application is due.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay, then good.
So,
Can't
so,
be
well-
attitude.
Well, actually, by October 9th, I don't know, because you're not meeting again. So we could come up with policies, they're easy enough to get from surrounding towns and tailor them to our needs here. But in order to have them be official policies, you would need to vote on them, so.
Okay.
So just one, it's Craig, not Doug, because the first paragraph in this thing says it will be Doug, but it's going to be Craig.
it's in the full report, it would be Craig.
Not just in the notes and the packet.
It's fairly common for the building commissioner to be the ADA coordinator.
Well, and then he's likely to assign it to Doug,
Okay.
which he can probably do. You just have to supervise it.
Well, so I guess I'm still really concerned, are these the regulations only because we're applying for a grant, or should we have had those in place already?
They should have
Should have had
been.
some place
So I
already.
just want to point that out as something that hasn't been done in this town, and it's a real issue. We have old buildings. This was a huge issue with the school when we built it. You know, we had to meet because it was a brand-new school. Because we don't fix our buildings until like the elevator breaks, you know, we don't, the trigger doesn't happen about accessibility, but I want it to be taken more seriously than I feel like it's being taken here. It's not just about a grant. It's about accessibility for everybody in town to come into town building or whatever town building we own. So,
Yeah.
I just felt that the tone of that memo was like, yeah, well, we have to do this for a grant. No, it's accessibility. There's a reason we started the ADA, 30 years ago, you know? And we have a town of a lot of seniors, and we should be more concerned about their ability to get into buildings than we are.
So I think that we have a culture in town of being very frugal and trying not to spend money.
Overly.
And I think that it carries through to a bunch of boards and committees that they are afraid to ask for money.
Mhm.
And I think that some of the fallout is that things don't get done because we have been very cautious.
Right.
Yes.
And it's, you know, it's a balancing act in order to not be spendthrift, but I think I agree that it's time to change things, but we also could look at that culture and encourage people to ask for the money they need in their departments for all of the current,
Yep.
requirements that might need to be met.
Well, I think there's a different dimension to it, which is that we've never been very good about policymaking, frankly. And we do policies, we do ad hoc policies. Courtney was thinking a few moments ago about the liquor on town government policy. Just one selectman thinks of it, researches it, writes it, we do a policy. But we've always needed, and I mentioned this when we were looking for a new town administrator, we've always needed a more organized and formal policy-making function. And, if we had had that, this would have been one of the things we would have created. Plus, frankly, an ADA coordinator or contact person in connection with human resources, not just buildings. And I think human resources is one of the areas where we need policy. And one of the things that I'm certainly hoping that our new town administrator does for us and with us is guide us through that process, make suggestions for that, give us samples from other towns of stuff that we should be enacting. We make the ultimate decision, we edit it, we change it, blah, 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 but, you know, somebody who will act as our chief staff member in that policy-making function too. And I think that will make progress on the kind of thing you're talking about.
And I will definitely do that once I figure out what policies are already in place.
Right.
Because that's difficult to find.
Just make up new ones. But, you know, and that's it. That's, you know, it's one of the things that I think we're looking forward to having you on board to do. And, yep, maybe we've been remiss, as Ellen says, but, you know, now we have a chance to correct some of the things and, you know, move forward rather than looking back. So it's, I think it's, you know, you know, one of the reasons, like I say, that I put this on short notice was in order to help get the grant. It had the, obviously, the side effect of bringing up an issue, which is good. Are we going to be able to move forward with the grant application in an expedient manner, even if we haven't voted on the policies?
So if the board wishes, I would say you could bestow the authority on me to develop and implement the ADA grievance procedure. That is the most vital, that is needed, that would require some formality. So if you're comfortable with me implementing the procedure, we can take care of the anti-discrimination posting and those documents. You could certainly review it at your next meeting, but we would have it in place. And
We could ask for
in place.
changes at that point. I think that,
Oh, right, because the policy would just have to be in place, but it doesn't have to be the final policy. We could make amended.
most of those policies are meant to be kind of living documents. You know,
Right.
as things change.
Right.
You know, they get changed, so if
Right.
we authorize the town administrator to do that, at least it lets us move forward with the grant application,
Yeah.
and we get a bonus policy out of it.
Right, and I just want to say, yes, it is great that we're getting this because we needed to do it for the grant, but I think also, once we realized that we didn't have an ADA compliance officer when we were in our meeting, I think it was like, oh, this needs to happen yesterday. So I think there was like a, why don't we have this in place kind of moment, and, you know, I don't know who does everything here, so, so finding out that we didn't have one was a bit of a shock, so, yeah, so I'm glad that everything is all gonna work out.
You know, it's good for it to be brought up, because I'm sure that Denise is gonna come across any number of things. You know, it's the same as with Mike bringing forward a new policy. You know, maybe it should have been in place 5 years ago, but it wasn't on anybody's radar. But, you know, he's put it together and, you know, it's brought it forward, and, you know, we'll be doing other similar things, so
Well, the difference is the ADA has actually been a federal law for a very, very, very long time. Transgender issues are coming up, it's a whole different issue, so.
Yep.
I just want to state that again, we were breaking the law by not having things in place.
Well, thank goodness we didn't get busted for it.
And we're lucky we didn't get busted for it, but we're gonna do this as quickly as we can. Do we need to make a motion to authorize?
So is the motion
To-
to authorize the town administrator to draft an ADA grievance process and to appoint the building inspector as ADA compliance officer?
that sounds reasonable.
And that's what I move.
There you go.
Second.
All
Is
in
that-
favor?
Aye.
Is it okay to do those together like this?
Yeah.
Pretty good? Okay. Then I'm in favor.
Because that would be part of the policy to have someone designated as the.
Great.
He doesn't know what he just got himself into, because it's way more than just.
Well, that's why he's gonna turn it over to Doug.
Oh, no, please don't. It's an HR issue really more than anything.
All right. Town administrators report, we've already taken care of, unless you have anything else, Denise?
I do not. Other than I will share again that Chelsea, once again, expresses her apologies for her statement, so.
Is a tough time to be in the orchard business, I can only imagine.
It's a tough time to just be
To be
in a
any
small business. I'm
small
telling
business,
you,
that's
like,
right,
it's
that's
just,
right. Yep.
everybody gets sort of a,
But they even have a more compressed.
Oh, I
schedule
know,
than
I
most
know,
small
yeah, yeah.
businesses, so. And we need them in town,
Yeah.
and we know that we need them in town, so.
Liaison reports. Jim, we'll start with you today.
I don't have that much. FinCom's meeting tonight, and Library Building Committee, everyone is sworn in except one member. There's just some holdup there, and they don't want to meet until everyone's sworn, but they're actually scheduling a meeting. Stowe TV, a couple of interesting things, but I'd like the town administrator to add in if I screw anything up here. Stowe TV is going to be expressing interest in the Town Hall Renovation Committee, if they haven't already, in getting some space there, which in the long run may be a good thing, since I think we've all been wondering what is going to go in there. But, you know, whether that's appropriate is up to greater minds than mine. Among other things, so I mentioned before that they're doing this ascertainment. This is where they come up with a list of things they need, and it's kind of their opening gambit in the negotiation with the cable company. Among other things, they're trying to now just finalize all of their equipment over to HD. In that connection, this room is one of the few that is not HD. I mean, I've always joked that nobody needs to see my receding hairline in high definition, but I guess the equipment becomes less compatible when some is HD and some is SD, so they want to move everything over to HD. And they're thinking about, as part of the ascertainment, and I'm sure you know about this, flat screens in our hearing room so that we don't no longer have to look at PowerPoints on the white wall. And they might have said different cameras, I'm not sure.
Cameras and microphone upgrade.
Cameras and microphone upgrade.
Yes.
And so just be aware of that. Oh, and just Stowe TV, LACAC informally believes that it is a lack of transparency that so many boards are not televised. And I made the point that a lot of people on some boards just don't feel comfortable being televised. And they're not in favor of that. So certain boards, like planning board, look out, because they're going to want, Stowe TV is going to want them to be televised. So that conversation will be coming up. And I know there are personalities on the planning board that do not want to be on television.
I don't want to be on television, but I didn't have.
But here you are.
and here
But
you
here I
are.
am.
We all get used to it, right?
I told you, you get used to it. So that's it.
Courtney.
Conservation Commission and SMOT met last week. SMOT had a long joint meeting with Planning Board, I believe, to talk about zoning issues around potential development on Athens Lane and other sort of townwide things that may be developable in the future, and sort of ways to handle zoning around the developers. In some cases, would like to increase active adult neighborhood units. We currently have used up all the ones that we said were allowed. So a long conversation there. Mostly good and just in the planning stages, just an initial go at that, I think. What's a pretty big topic. Conservation Commission, kind of business as usual. And that, at the moment, is my full report.
Ellen.
So the big thing for the Council on Aging is having their annual picnic tomorrow, which is not a picnic, it's a drive-through at Pompo. They're being very creative and having a number of tables that will serve different food, and people can drive through and not only get some good meal, but also say hello to people and get some visuals that they haven't been able to get. So doing the best with what they can. Couple other, they did have a meeting, I'm trying to find the notes that I kept very carefully, because it's amazing how much they've been able to get done in spite of all the COVID stuff. They're servicing a whole lot of people, average of 220 people a month. 824 different services offered, so obviously more people getting multiple things. Getting 350 calls a month, still very popular with getting food, fitness, and medical equipment is the big thing. They have, 100 and some volunteers that are still able to help them out getting all sorts of things done. And this was all with Gigi, who's the assistant director, out for 3 weeks with pneumonia. So and they did get, I think I mentioned before, they've got the new van just waiting to get it registered. It's a very funny story about the wrong address for the town of Stowe all these years. But anyway, so that was Council on Aging. Rec Commission's meeting on Thursday, so I'll have something next time. I missed the cemetery committee meeting last week. Also don't want to be televised. I did get to meet with Jamie Eldridge just informally last week just to catch up because I haven't seen him for a while and talked about the budget, which Denise already discussed. So he hopes to come by at some point after the election season is over. And I attended that town meeting that Denise had talked about. It was good to hear from the people in the room, the fire chief, police chief, various, everyone involved in that planning process. So it does feel like it was a good progress in terms of getting on the same page with sort of what the most reasonable options are. And that's about it. Nothing much for me.
Megan?
Planning board's meeting tonight. I don't have any updates from them. I think, Denise, it looks like they went back and forth with you about wording for the outdoor dining.
Yes.
Okay. So there was that. Town Hall Restoration Committee met. Jonathan Daisy actually came in and gave us a presentation. Talked about, not really a presentation, but really more of a, I'm interested in moving in to the sort of taking over the basement area. And since a huge part of the uphill battle that I feel like this committee is facing is the cost of what it would cost to renovate this building, when he came in and said, I might have money to be able to do this, that was great, right? So we're really hoping that that might happen. The other thing, obviously, the Stowe Historical Commission wanted to have some space in there as well. So whether or not they could actually have space over there, or because if Stowe TV leaves and there is some space now in the building, whether or not they would be able to occupy that space. So it's good, and we had met with the architect 2 meetings ago to sort of start figuring out, what our plan is moving forward, what we're asking from the architect, whether or not it's like a mothball situation or all the way up to, a new renovation. So it's good. I feel like, I don't know, what do you think, Courtney?
I think it's going well. I think the architect is going to give us a great way to present the project.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're just the perfect people to really, it's not like it's a fancy thing that we're presenting. It's a beautiful restoration
Mm-hmm.
of this town asset, which is a lovely, simple building.
Mm-hmm.
But they are specialists in restoration of old buildings. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's just a care and a love for places like this that is going to guide us in all sorts of subtle ways.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like having Stowe TV express an interest changes a little bit the way we look at how is this building going to be used.
Right.
Stowe TV said that, right now they feel like they've still got a solid reason to exist. I sort of had this idea that they're talking about having a studio where they could have an interview or something. That this is something that is really, it could add a use to the building, not just their use, but kind of like, we also have a TV studio downstairs if you want to go add X into your, whatever your package is that you're using the building for.
It's in walkable distance to the school too, so it's, could the school get involved? It could be a multi-purpose space, which I think is what we have been looking for, right? So, so that was really good. The last thing is, school started last week. School committee has been continuing to meet. Everything seems to be going well. So, and Tri-Town will be meeting October 14th. And Lake Boone Commission doesn't have a meeting on the books for a while, so.
Did the architect name get announced for, I mean, I just remember hearing the search, but I didn't see it in the paper.
Are they still in contract?
They have not signed a contract.
Okay, so no,
We are going through that process.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yep. I'm done, yeah, sorry.
Most of the liaising I've done, you've already heard about. One of the things I wanted to mention is, and just kind of toss it out, doesn't need a vote, I just wanted a consensus. I was thinking about moving the meeting minutes and correspondence to the end of the meeting so that we could get people in here and out of here faster, because most people don't care about the correspondence and the minutes.
Sure.
I don't, it's always been at the beginning since I've been on the board, but I thought maybe mix it up a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that you guys might be on board with at least giving it a shot for a while and, change things up a little bit.
See, why not?
Yeah, I think it makes.
I mean, I think the only reason to have it up at the beginning is that it's sort of, some of the correspondence plays directly into things that we're already talking about. But other than that, no, I'm fine with that.
No,
Yeah.
we'll give it a shot. The other thing is that I wanted to kind of put it on people's radar. The second meeting in November is 2 days before Thanksgiving, which is always a great time. And the second meeting in December, we've typically tried to skip it, and that is 3 days before Christmas. So, I just wanted to kind of put it on people's radar. If anybody's got vacations around that time, for Thanksgiving, let Maureen know, and, we'll coordinate it that way if anybody's planning on, I'm actually on vacation that week of
Do we go every 2
Christmas.
weeks, or do we do second and fourth?
Second and fourth.
That's what my calendar shows. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. That's it. Every now and then we get a bonus week in between.
Right.
But, I just kind of wanted to bring that up, so that it was on people's radars, and we don't have to make any decisions about the second meeting in November or December at this point, but I'm probably inclined, unless anybody has a burning need, to plan on trying not to have the one before Christmas.
That's fine.
But the one before Thanksgiving is probably still a little bit more up in the air. A couple of things that we're gonna have to be, we actually don't have very many. Denise and I were talking about it the other day. We've only got 6 meetings before the end of the year.
Okay.
I think 5 if we skip Christmas. So in that time, we're going to have to start screening for the police chief position. And then, I'd like to get that done before the end of the year if there's any way possible. We've got resumes in.
We have resumes coming in? Oh, good.
Hmm?
I said we have resumes coming in?
Yes.
Good.
But, the next meeting, we will probably be picking one of the candidates that we have for the citizen at large. And after that, Denise can, I'll say, convene the group. We'll get the resumes, start going through them. But one of the thoughts that might work is, how we did the interviews for the town administrator on a Saturday. If we have 3 to 5 people coming in, it might be a good thing to whack it all out at once, the way we did with that.
Okay.
But, more than anything else, I just kind of wanted to put those thoughts in people's heads so that they could think about it a little bit. But, it would be, it's good to get that stuff done.
Did we agree that sometime around the end of the year, we're gonna work with Denise on a work plan for her, or did we just table that, or? where
Well,
does that stand?
that's something that Ellen actually asked me about, where it came from. It's when I asked you.
Oh, the document came from.
Right,
When I was researching processes for how to pick a TA, but,
right.
uh,
Denise and I have talked about it a little bit.
okay.
But, given the number of weeks before the end of the year, given that this is only her second meeting with us, I think I'd like to bring it up before the end of the year, but I'm not sure that we'll actually get to it.
And if I may just comment, so it makes sense to time that around sort of town meeting, the budget, and a new fiscal year. So I think if we, it kind of ties into, I think it was Ellen or Megan, one of you brought up the idea of a retreat, or Courtney.
Of course.
So if we have some conversation around, retreat, goal setting for, my position, the board, the town, and then that way that can go into how we develop our budget and the plans for fiscal '22.
As long as it hasn't been,
Yep.
as long as it's on the radar somewhere.
Yes.
Great.
And that's it. I've actually been talking to Denise about, a retreat, something that would be a little less formal than, us sitting around the table here. And so she was gonna do a little research about what we can do, can't do, as far as, the open meeting law. Make sure we stay within that, but probably not be on TV, where it'd be more of a, a session to talk through things, lay a bunch of stuff on the table, but we probably just wouldn't be making any votes on anything, but kind of come to a consensus about discussing things in the future.
Sounds
That
good.
way we can have, a little more free-flowing thought, so. I haven't been ignoring some of that stuff, but I have been trying to, keep it alive, shall we say. But, so, that's kind of my, the end of my report, so. If
That's a good one.
Anybody have any other comments? Then I'll take a motion to go home.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Woo-hoo.
All in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That window's